Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. If you were just listening last segment, I've been doing radio for 20 years. That was one of the weirdest segments I've ever done. His name was attorney T. Matthew Phillips. He says a lot of crazy things on that show.
Are you emphasizing attorney, Brian?
Well, he said that the coronavirus was man-made and that no one's ever died from the coronavirus, and he said it's a hoax. So yet he's saying it's man-made, but yet it doesn't exist. Then he went into 9/11. He said that nobody was in those planes, that it was used by a remote control. Those are just some of the wacky things he did. And, everyone in studio was like, who's going to walk this guy out? I don't want to walk him out. This guy's nuts. So our camera guy, who is certainly a hero today, is Campaign, and Campaign had to walk this guy out of the building. Campaign, we appreciate you doing that, by the way.
No problem.
So, Campaign, what was your thought process as you're strolling out Mr. Phillips out the door? What were you thinking at that point?
Mr. Phillips, the hairs on the back of my neck were standing up the whole time. You guys are sitting there joking with this guy. I'm like, this dude is crazy. I'm like, we got to get him out of here. And then as soon as the interview was over, all you guys take off. And I'm like, I'm in this. He's sitting there wanting to talk. No, get up out of here now. No, excuse me, sir. We have to leave right now. I need that space right now.
Well, Campaign, we commend you for doing that.
Yeah.
Thank you, by the way.
No problem. No problem.
We do appreciate that. I didn't want to walk him out of there. That guy's nuts. That guy's out of his mind. But anyway, let's get back to a little bit of normalcy here. The coronavirus does exist, and it can and is affecting the sports world. The NHL, the locker rooms, they're now closed to the media. What's next? What's going to happen for college basketball, the NBA? The man we have with us on the line right now, always love it when he comes on. He is our hoops guru from Drive Time Sports. He is Jamison Welsh. Jamison, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. Definitely appreciate it.
Jamison, you're not a conspiracy theorist, right? I know I'm not. You're no more of an expert than I am, but I would say, yes, the coronavirus does exist, does it not?
Oh, it definitely exists, and it is, it's here to stay. I mean, it's a lot going on, especially in the sports world right now. So
yes.
There's a lot of different things and opinions and, just a lot of different thoughts that are, kind of not necessarily a panic, but it's definitely a topic of conversation.
Well, definitely. And, LeBron James was asked about the possibility of playing in an NBA arena without any fans. I want to play you this audio from LeBron, and then I want you to respond to it. This is LeBron James telling reporters he refuses to play in empty arenas.
I ain't playing. I ain't got the fans in the crowd. That's what I play for. Play for my teammates, I play for the fans. That's what it's all about. So if I show up to an arena and ain't no fans in there, I ain't playing. So they can do what they want to do.
So what would you say to that, Jamison?
I understand completely where it's coming from. I mean, a lot of the people that think, it's just a game, and it's not necessarily just a game. I mean, there's, whether you're playing on the playground, whether you're playing in a regular high school gym, a college gym, the atmosphere is what the game is based about. Like the game yesterday, that was the best game of the year.
It was incredible.
Talked about game.
Yep.
And it wasn't just because you had two of the best teams playing. It's because of the setting. You have a Clipper home game filled with Laker fans, and you can't replicate that. And you take that element out, that it's just not the same. Like sports without emotion and without an atmosphere, you really can't do that, especially a game like basketball. Baseball is a little bit different because a lot of baseball games, especially in the later innings, are mostly empty.
Right.
But basketball, man, you got to have people in the stands. There's just no way.
And I agree.
Playing basketball in empty gym.
Yeah, I agree completely, Jamison. So the NBA, though, sticking to the NBA now, wants to hear these teams' coronavirus plans by tomorrow. What do you know about this?
Well, there's like a conference call like Wednesday to kind of figure out what's going on. I know they've already, told people not to do autographs or anything like that, just because, the germs that can be spread. And, but in terms of overall, no one really knows. I mean, the team planes, most teams have their own charter planes, so that's safe for the most part. But in terms of, traveling from arena to arena, no one really knows. It's a big unknown at this point. But playing a game without people being there is a very, very risky situation.
So I agree.
Ends.
Let's talk a little bit about Chicago State. As you know, the WAC tournament is going to be in Las Vegas starting, I believe, Wednesday, actually. And Chicago State basketball team announced that they will be canceling the road trip amid these coronavirus concerns. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, what's their record?
They're not very good. They're not very good. Let's put it that way.
So my thing is this: if they were a better team, I don't think I don't think some of the things that have happened over the last week or two with them would be taking place. I think if they're in the running for an at-large bid, or if they're in the running for NIT or whatever it may be, their situation would be a little bit different. But when you've had a really, really bad season, you kind of want to end it when you can. If you have a chance to end it quickly, you want to do that. You don't want to have to keep on going on with this situation. So that's kind of my 2 cents on it. I just think that when you look at the whole situation, you look at their bad team, they have to travel to that conference. Very few of the schools are close, so you have to travel when you go places. So you're going from Chicago to Vegas, Chicago to Seattle. You really don't want to have to make those trips unless you absolutely have to. I think it's more about the budget and the team being bad more than anything in my eyes.
So, Jameson, what you're pointing out is you think that these teams are actually dictating their actions based on their team performance or based on team goals as opposed to what the actual threat is as far as the coronavirus and the information that we have regarding this pandemic that's coming across America right now?
All right. So we got the ACC tournament starting up on Tuesday.
Yep.
We have the Big Ten tournament coming up. We got the Big 12, Pac-12. None of those schools are talking about not going. All those schools are traveling.
No, but I'm talking about like that whole dynamic of, teams making decisions just based on, well, we're not a very good team or we're not going to be a tournament team as opposed to, we're really concerned about
Chris,
the coronavirus.
I think if you think about the fact that a lot of these fans aren't going to travel for these teams, especially with the coronavirus concerns, as well as the fact that they know that they're not good, they don't really have a chance to compete, and they don't want to do any more damage. I think that makes sense.
Well, let's Jameson, let's go to the good news. And by the way, if you're just joining us, we're speaking with Jameson Welsh from Drive Time Sports, talking about how the coronavirus could possibly affect sporting events. Let's talk about the good news, Jameson. All these postseason tournaments here in Las Vegas. We just had the Mountain West Conference, which was fantastic. Yeah. We're going to be heading out to the West Coast Conference tournament tonight, the Zags, BYU, and that isn't affected. The WAC isn't affected other than the awful Chicago State basketball team. Nobody wants to see them anyway. And as far as I know, the Pac-12 not affected either. So that is the good news. And then the NCAA has come out saying that they plan to play at every single March Madness site, all 14 sites. So nobody's really going crazy. And people are still sticking to their guns, and all these games are going to be played with fans in attendance. Right, Jameson?
That's correct. And also, here's the thing, too. A lot of fans have already paid for stuff. And if anyone's tried to cancel a flight recently, it is very difficult. One, you got to wait an hour on the line. And two, airlines aren't refunding you your money. You might get a flight credit, but you're not getting your money back on your credit or debit card. So it's really, really tricky when it comes to the traveling and the tickets and all that. Like, it's a really difficult situation for that. So, yeah, people are going to go. Like, if they already bought tickets or they already have hotel accommodations, they're going to those events. That's just how it is.
So let me ask you about the NHL then. And I know you cover the NBA and college hoops, but this is a situation that I certainly don't agree with. As I'm sure you've already heard, the NHL is now cutting media access into these NHL locker rooms before and after games. I think it's a big mistake they're making and a very dangerous precedent. And maybe, I don't know, maybe some of these players just don't like talking to the media anyway. I don't know. I have a feeling if this was during the playoffs, this would not happen. What do you make of the decision that Gary Bettman has made?
I believe that happened in college basketball as well, if I'm not mistaken. I remember the guy from San Diego State, the writer there, I can't think of his name. I believe he mentioned something of that nature.
Yep.
And I'm
Ziegler.
instituted something similar as well.
Yeah.
So like that's gonna come like that. I get that.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know who has what.
Exactly.
And you don't want 25 guys or 20 guys or 13 guys being close to someone that may have. So I understand that. However, instead of the media coming to the locker room, there's going to have to be a situation where the player or players go to a certain area to where they can be interviewed if possible. It can't just be, hey, no media allowed, period. There has to be some sort of compromise so the media can get their job done as well.
I mean, Brian, imagine if a hockey player or a basketball player or a football player or a baseball player gets a coronavirus and is playing a game and they don't know that they have it. And I mean, imagine how many people could be affected by that, especially a professional hockey team, and that could totally affect their bottom line, especially considering the fact that new information just came out that the coronavirus is actually it's the most active at 8 degrees Celsius or 35 degrees Fahrenheit, which is roughly the temperature that those ice rinks will be. So I understand that 100%.
Well, why don't they close down the locker rooms for the flu then? Why don't they do the same thing for the flu that kills, 20, 30,000 Americans every year?
Steph Curry just had the flu, didn't he? Like 3 days ago.
We have a cure for the flu. We don't have a cure for this.
I understand that, and that's a very valid point. But when you look
it's
at
just such a giant insurance risk for the teams, especially the professional teams, because they're paying these guys millions of dollars, and they're relying on them to bring fans in and to obviously produce revenue.
And by the way, Jameson, as we're conducting this interview with you, we are watching the ship that has in Oakland that has 21 coronavirus patients. They're about to dock. So this is a scary situation. I'm telling you, it's going to be a scene from Outbreak. And again, that's going on in Oakland right now. This ship is about to dock with at least 21 patients that have been affected by this virus. So we'll continue to monitor this, Jameson, and we'll see how this goes. Let's move on to some actual basketball news. So Kyle Kuzma.
Hey, thank you, Dr. Welsh.
Kyle Kuzma, Jameson, made some interesting comments over the weekend, asked about this possible Lakers-Clippers playoff series. Seems to be inevitable, but I want you to listen to what Kyle Kuzma's answer was to that. Have a listen to this.
I mean, I don't mean by inevitable. Just like it's going to happen one way or another. Yeah, it's going to happen. I mean, that's how the league's going to make money. You know, it's going to happen.
So basically, he's saying this is how the league's going to make money. It's going to happen. Whether that might be true or not, do you think it's appropriate for an NBA player saying, we're definitely going to, play in the Western Conference Finals against the Clippers because this is how the league makes money? Do you think it's appropriate for a player like Kyle Kuzma to say that?
Definitely not appropriate. He should not have said that. However, those are the two best teams out west. It's not like one team's a fifth seed and one team's a third. Like, they are the two best teams. Now, you look at the potential teams they got to face to get there, the Clippers may have a rougher path if they're the 2 seed or the 3 seed than the Lakers would. That's just kind of how it goes down. But I don't think he meant anything by that. I just think it kind of came out that way. But they are the two best teams, and they are on a collision course for the Western Conference Finals. We just got to hope everybody's healthy at that time. But yeah, that's there's nothing. I mean, he shouldn't have said it that way. But the way things are going, I mean, they are by far. I mean, the gap between 1 and 2 and the next best team, who I think is probably Denver, and I wouldn't even be too confident in that, but that's probably the third best team out west. It's a pretty wide gap between teams 1 and 2 and Denver. So, it is what it is. But, if one of the LA teams was not in the conference finals, I think it would be a bigger shock than anything.
So obviously, Jameson, we got a chance to see the two LA teams in action this weekend, but we also, Jameson, got to see a possible NBA Finals matchup with the Milwaukee Bucks and the Los Angeles Lakers over this weekend. I want to get your overall perspective and thought on this Milwaukee Bucks team. Are they getting, the type of respect or perception around the league that they should be getting, considering when you look at the Eastern Conference, this is going to be the team that has a real chance of coming out of the East and playing in the NBA Finals?
Well, they shouldn't get any more respect than they deserve because right now they remind me of the 07 Mavs. Very good regular season team. You have one really great player that's an MVP type. You have an all-star as a second guy, then a bunch of role players. Now, remember the 07 Mavs team won like 68 games, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. They won a bunch of games regular season, and then they ran to the Warriors, and they lost in the first round. The Bucks remind me a lot of that team. Again, very solid coach, team is really good, but they just don't have enough. And I don't trust their role players versus good teams to make plays when they need them. I don't trust Bledsoe and George Hill and I don't trust those guys enough to where you play elite teams and you got to go to your third and fourth options on plays for them to come through consistently enough. I just don't. I think that Boston has a good chance of beating them. I think that Toronto has a good chance of beating them. I'll even do you one better. I think that if Philly gets healthy, it's a big if because they have a lot of injury issues and other issues. But if Philly gets right, they have a good chance of anyone out east. So Milwaukee's the best team out east, but they're far from unbeatable, and Miami's already beaten them twice. So they have some things to worry about, to tighten up on. They probably the team out east with the least amount of concerns, but I wouldn't just say, hey, they're in the finals. I wouldn't do that just yet.
Okay. So you think that Philadelphia's coach could handle coaching in the playoffs? You think he's a decent coach?
Well, no. However, he has the most talent.
Yeah, he does have a lot of talent.
And when you have the most talent, you always have a chance. And my thing is Coach Budenholzer has not been the best coach in the playoffs. He's had issues in the playoffs, especially with making adjustments and whatnot. So when he's had to make adjustments, it's been kind of tricky for him. We'll definitely see what happens. But here's the thing. When you're the favorite, like the overwhelming favorite, it's a little bit different.
Right.
Like when you're, when it's a coin toss or a slight favorite or a slight dog, you coach different, you play different. But when you're the overwhelming favorite, it's different pressure now. And we'll see, because the Bucks will enter the playoffs as overwhelming favorites to get out of the East. And we'll see how they deal with that. But me personally, I think there's teams out in the East that can take them off.
Were the Bucks, weren't they the overwhelming favorite last year as well, Jameson?
Not really overwhelming. Not because the teams, Toronto and Philly were both good.
Right.
So it wasn't like a situation where, it wasn't like an odds on if they don't make it, it's a travesty. No, they were the favorite, but it wasn't like a situation where if they, it wasn't like the Warriors situation where it was like minus 2,000 to get out.
Right. And they weren't 53-12 like they are now, obviously, just completely steamrolling all the competition, at least when Giannis plays. So one team that was involved in a major trade with the Lakers is the New Orleans Pelicans. They have Zion Williamson is now back. They're starting to play pretty well. They're winning a lot of games. I like their starting five of Holiday, Ball, Williamson, Ingram, and Favors. They don't have a lot of depth on the bench. Do you think they have any chance whatsoever of making some noise in the Western Conference playoffs?
In 2021, this season's over. And the reason why it's over is because they don't defend. And to get a winning streak and to make sure that, you try to catch Memphis, because Memphis is up, I believe, 4.5 on them. 4.5 with 20 to go is very difficult. It's very difficult to make. But that being said, I don't see it happening. I really don't see it. When you look at the situation, the Pelicans lose games that they have no business losing because they just don't defend. They give up 120, 125 too easily, and Alvin Gentry is a good coach for certain situations, but he does not emphasize defense. That's a huge problem.
Obviously, another story coming out of New York, you'd think it'd be about the New York Knicks, but it's not, Jameson. We're talking about the Brooklyn Nets and the coaching situation. Kenny Atkinson ends up stepping down as the head coach there. There's thoughts that maybe Tyronn Lue might be in the mix as the next head coach there in Brooklyn. Your thoughts on that whole situation, because there's a lot of viewpoints out there that he basically got a raw deal with that team, given the injury situation, obviously with Kyrie being out for the season and this Brooklyn Nets team not even being close to healthy and being what it's going to be once the 2020-2021 season rolls around. What do you think about that whole situation as far as the coach in Brooklyn with the Nets?
Well, so here's the situation. Every coach has a particular, role, I guess you could say. There are some coaches that get you from like the bottom of the league to the playoffs. There's some coaches that get you from like the barely making the playoffs to like the second round conference finals, and there's those coaches that get you from like the conference finals on up.
Right.
And Kenny Atkinson is a player development guy, a guy to kind of turn things around. I don't know if he was a guy to get them to the second round conference finals, that kind of guy. And the star player, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, I don't know if they, bought into him being the guy full time. And there's other guys out there, like you mentioned, Ty Lue, that has won a championship and has experience in coaching, into June. And if that guy's available, you go get him. Kenny Atkinson has done a hell of a job. He's helped change the culture for the Nets. But when you bring in two max guys, those guys make the decision on the coach. That's normally how it goes in this league, especially when none of those guys have an attachment to the guy that's now coaching. Now, it would have been different if Kenny Atkinson was one of those guys who's coached from before or one of their trainers or whatever. That wasn't the case. So when a situation like that does happen, normally this is nothing new. This has happened before and it'll happen again.
Jameson,
whenever you have two max guys in your team, you're going to have a different coach in there.
Jameson, didn't get a chance to get your thoughts on the UNLV basketball season. I want to go back to that. Obviously, UNLV lost in the quarterfinals of the Mountain West Conference tournament. Now, I said that if he had won that game against Boise State, it would have turned what wasn't a horrible year, a decent year, into a great year, because then maybe they would have had an outside chance of getting an NIT invite. And I say maybe because that's not a guarantee. Now, obviously, their postseason chances are done with. Year one for T.J. Otzelberger, certainly a much better year than I think some of us expected, and I thought he did a decent job. But tough loss on Thursday against Boise State. What do you make of their season overall?
Not bad. It wasn't bad considering all that happened. And, whenever you're in year one, you just kind of have to avoid disaster.
Right.
And he did that. There was nothing crazy that happened. There was no loss to like a D3 school or nothing like that. There's no player getting in trouble off the court in a serious situation. So there was good things that happened. Of course, taking San Diego State's undefeated record away was amazing. That's something to build on. However, how many guys are you going to keep from this team? Because there's already been talks of who's transferring, who's staying, and, who's coming in. And that's always, something to keep an eye on, because you want to build that continuity from season to season so there's not a whole lot of turnover, because in other regimes we've seen how that kind of works, and it can work against the coaches sometimes. So I kind of want to see who stays. And also I want to see the coach not throw his guys under the bus so much, especially for the first year. You kind of want to make sure guys are comfortable in being here and make sure guys are trying to, fit your system. But it's like every game, especially at the beginning of the season, he was throwing guys under the bus left and right. And that just didn't really sit well with me, especially on a team where he's made some coaching mistakes as well. So hopefully going forward in year two, that doesn't happen.
So two questions. Let's address the transfer conversation. Amari Hardy has obviously been talked about as a possible transfer. Do you think he transfers? And in my opinion, Bryce Hamilton was not only the most improved player in the Mountain West, but the entire country. Do you agree with that?
He's definitely in the conversation. Now, Hardy transferring, we'll see what happens. But no, Hamilton, he was good. He got, he's confident. He's got a lot better. It'll be interesting to see what he does. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me to put his name in the draft. I don't think he'll go to the draft, but I could see him going to the workouts, testing the waters out, seeing what's there, seeing how it is, and then coming back to school. I can see him doing that. But no, he definitely impressed. He's a guy that he showed that he has some abilities, that this won't be his last stop. He's going to be a pro somewhere, whether it's in the league or overseas or whatever. He's going to be a pro. He has certain skill set that we haven't seen here in a while.
Yep.
But here's the thing. Does he buy in to what the coach is selling going forward? That's going to be key. And we're going to see, based off of these guys return or not, how much they believe in this coach. Because they have a possibility next year of having a really solid team if guys return. But if they don't return, you're almost starting over again.
Everybody returns. I think that they should be the team to beat. I know San Diego State's going to be pretty good next year, too. But, Jamison, before we let you go, give out that information. How do people follow you? How do people see you on social media?
Well, let's see. On Twitter, at the Jamison. Let's see here. On Instagram, same one, but instead of the, just the Jamison. You'll see me I'm usually on this show quite often. I appreciate you guys always having me on. Of course, ESPN 1100 in the city as well, then Fox Sports 1340 and other places around the West Coast. And you'll probably see me tonight at the West Coast Conference Tournament. I'll be at the probably Gonzaga game. I'll see you.
Yeah, we'll see you there tonight.
And we are actually going to talk about that next. Jamison, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Always appreciate your expertise. Thank you so much for coming on. Dr. Jamison Walsh joining us on the show. Jamison, thanks for your time, man. Always appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Jamison.
Thanks, Doc.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
He is Jamison Walsh from Drive Time Sports joining us. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, is it possible that the U.S. markets are on track for the worst day in a decade? A 2,000-point plunge. We'll talk about that and preview the West Coast Conference coming up next.